Hello, everybody. My name's Milan Starcic. Welcome to Freedom Rising, a podcast dedicated to empowering individuals on the journey to personal growth, lasting serenity, and freedom from addiction. Tune in and join the movement. Your journey to freedom starts here. We neither represent, promote, or demote any 12-step program or organization. We are merely souls on the path of recovery with the desire to expand our lives and experiences and share them with you. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the 149th Recovery Freedom Rising podcast. I'm Milan Starcic with co-host Shannon B. Today's topic is our mistakes and course corrections with the tools. Shannon, could you tell us what this means to you and why you were delighted to come and talk about this today?
Just delighted, my friend. Because, just because we put the bottle or the substance down doesn't mean we're not. So, like for me, didn't mean that suddenly, I was going to be perfect in life. And I definitely still was in a lot of self-will in the beginning of my recovery. Especially the first time I came in, right? I was like, maybe I'll take this suggestion. Definitely not going to take this one. And there was consequences to that. But you know what? Like, it's a learning experience. And then I know, okay, can't do that again, right? Or like any true addict, got to do it again, right? But I'm just so grateful for the grace of God and for being able to laugh at myself, being able to find the gratitude even in things that I certainly wasn't grateful for at the time. Like I mentioned on this podcast before, relapse isn't a part of recovery, it's a lack of recovery. It just happens to be part of my story. And I'm so grateful for that because I'm grateful I was able to make it back. And I'm grateful for the new relationship I have with my recovery today. So, yeah, it's a learning process, right? We're going to stumble our way through it. But if we have loving, supportive fellowship around us, we have sponsors, we have people we can lean on that'll give us support and guidance. And hey, it's never too late to just do something differently. But
I
yeah, I
love that.
made I made a ton of less than desirable decisions, and I'll share a lot of those today and how I was able to course correct that.
I look forward to that. Those less desirable decisions. I love how you stated that, relapse is a lack of recovery and but part of your story. Uh, you know, um, like I just said before we started, I wouldn't have met you if you didn't relapse. So, in some selfish, self-centered way, I'm really glad I gained a sister through a relapse, in that
Glad I
crazy
did
way.
too.
I would like to start off by a shout out to our good friend Brian W., the man of ice, the man of born from the storm. Congratulations on 10 years, BW. Your sobriety's been a shining beacon to so many of us out here. And I love you. So, yeah.
Happy 10 years, B. You're the best. You've helped so many along the way, and you're going to continue to. We're just really proud of you. And yeah, we love you tons and keep shining that light and keep showing up and showing out like you have.
Yeah, he's a remarkable guy, and I feel really lucky to call him my brother. Mistakes and course corrections. I was a math guy growing up, and I'm telling you that mistakes were not part of like growth in my mind until I entered the program. It was like I wanted perfection, and that was part of the shit that made me crazy in life. Like if I got 97, it was like, what happened with that one wrong question? If I got 100 and there was a bonus, I was like, why didn't I get that bonus? Why wasn't I thinking clearly? And, it wasn't like, whoa, whoa, here's an opportunity to grow. And I had a long drive for work the other day to go take some presents up to Vernon and back. And in that period, I listened to a book on Stoicism, which I was like, whoa, remarkably filled with elements of our program and actually religion. Like the fact that Christianity was kind of forming around the same time as this Stoicism, there's an amazing amount of overlap. And anybody out there, I think it's worth a read for perspective, for sure. But, part of that is that not to see any moments like as bad or good and really that those moments are like the opportunities to grow are the days that are hard. So, we can experience greater ease and less discomfort in life if we seek to embrace what we would have normally called a bad day. You know, like what is this struggle teaching us? Where's the opportunity for us to grow here? And so it's been something inside the program that like I've never been so happy to be wrong in my whole life as I am right now. And that's really, like I'm not saying it's amazing, okay? Like there's times where it's like, but but I'm definitely enjoying. This is why I like the topics as our mistakes and course corrections. It's like the opportunity to correct the course is is the part that I'm relishing in it. That I have a direction that takes me to a higher level of personal growth, a greater understanding of the world around me, and just greater freedom inside me from being a puppet to my reactions of the world. And I'm going to leave that there. Do you want to start with the questions, Shannon?
You can, my dear.
Okay.
Hit me with it.
Woo, I got some good ones. Mistakes are not detours from the path. They are the part of the path that teaches us to walk it. How have your mistakes deepened your understanding of the spiritual principles?
Well, for starters, my mistakes have shown me that I'm human and that I don't have to beat myself up for not doing everything perfectly at all times, right? And I too suffered from, a lot of perfectionism in a lot of ways. But when I look back at, mistakes I made when I was younger and things like that, right? I in some situations I felt remorse, and a lot of them I just wanted it over with so I could move right on, right? Like I felt the remorse, but I didn't really want care to change the behavior. And those were the, stepping point. What's the word I'm looking for? That was like the starting points of where the pattern of addiction was going to be laid out in front of me, right? So it was more like, like those selfish prayers and stuff, or, I didn't mean to hurt you, but like, I'm definitely not going to stop drinking, like in my head, it's just like over apologize, be overly sorry, and then get this person off your back, and then you can go back to living how you want to live. But like through recovery, that's not an option anymore, right? Like if I'm living and practicing step 10 on a daily basis, I make amends because I needed. I acknowledge to myself, like, hey, didn't handle that one well. I go to God and I don't obsess over it or beat myself up. I just turn my energy into helping somebody else. If I can be a little bit better each day, then, I'm growing. And we don't grow in uncomfortability as much as sometimes that is really, really painful. It's part of the process. And in that way of living, I'm living a principled life. Integrity isn't about being perfect. It's about being able to own your mistakes and take accountability. And that to me is like part of being an adult too, and part of being um, the kind of woman that I know God wants me to be. Humility too. It's nice to be leveled sometimes. Stings a bit still, but hey, that's who I am. And also that comes with age too. And I'm sure you can agree with me with that. Like, I don't, not as effective as like how I appear to people as I was 10 years ago or even 20 years ago. And that's also come from being so vulnerable and humble in the rooms too, and not being judged. As I've been judged a ton in my life, but I'd rather be judged now for being human and trying to do better than for the way I was living before.
Woo, dropping the mic on that one. That was awesome. Okay,
Yeah.
mistakes are not detours from the path. They are part of the path that teaches us how to walk it. How have my mistakes deepened my understanding of the spiritual principles? Well, there's a lot there that in the directions that I could go, but for me, it really was honesty and humility that allowed me to get deep into my step work, and that showed me my part in things, in going through my inventory. And until that, like I thought I was caring. I thought I was compassionate. I thought I was and I wasn't, I really, all my love had some kind of string attached, and that was really keeping me deluded and keeping me sick. Like it was allowing me to blame everybody else. And so taking ownership of that, having the willingness to change, um, I would say that, my mistakes have been giving me a vision of what I need to change into, and giving me direct experience with those spiritual principles, and some of them for the first time ever, like it was not an honest life I was living near the end of my addiction, even to myself. And so, like you have to start a relationship to build a relationship with something. And so just, learning that there is no small or white lie. There's just lies or not. Like, that is one of the hardest things, especially in this day and age where, you know, people are wanting to be pleased, and I was a master people pleaser. Like I could identify what would make you happy, even if it was not honest. And I could be really good at providing that cushion of false reality, based on what your anticipated expectation was, and but that's a whole lot of character role playing on my part that I'm just not willing to do anymore. And, so I think that it's it is only through practice that we grow, and so inside practice is going to be plenty of mistakes. The mistakes are basically my vehicle. Like, if awareness is the initiation of my growth, then mistakes are basically literally the steps I'm taking, that I'm going up a couple, falling back, going up. The mistakes are how I'm honing my experience with those principles. And do you have a question now?
Thanks for sharing that. Definitely jogged a lot in my mind too, and especially when you said it's not like this is more of a lie. This is not really a lie.
Mm,
Like,
mm.
how we think of it. It's like a lie is a lie. And that's a tough pill that was a tough pill to swallow too, especially when I also heard like,
Whew.
we were selfish, self-centered, self-seeking people. I was like, mm-mm-mm-mm-mm.
I remember Susie or Shirley saying that to me, and I was like, "Are you sure?" I'm like, "Oh, I'm pretty generous." Like, I remember taking some kind of offense. Like, who does she think she is? She doesn't never seen me hang out with anyone. Like, I was like, but we know it's true.
Well,
We know
yeah, and
now.
7 years prior, I'd heard that same thing said to me, right? In the first treatment center I was in. And I was like, I don't know about that. Like, I'm quite generous. But then it was followed by, but is there not a self-serving motive always attached
That's
to
right.
it?
The strings.
And I'm like, well, you might be onto something. You know what
just
I
a
mean?
just a little.
So yeah, like those are tough pills to swallow, right? But we don't know what we don't know, and we can't correct what we don't know we're doing,
Well,
right?
yeah, that
Can you
awareness is the first step.
can you give me 1 second? It's like sweltering where I am in my house. I need to grab it.
You have a question for me, Shannon?
I do. Would you share with us one or two, if you like, pivotal learning experiences and the way you were able to course correct those in recovery? Even if it was recent, if it was early recovery, just something that really stands out to you that you were like, wow, this was a doozy and I learned from this. And I know that my experience can help someone else.
One of the, I think for me, I think of like the first day I left treatment, and I was like, Mr. Pink Cloud. I'm like, I am just gonna glide through life, this surrender and love. And Michelle and I got in an argument within 3 hours of getting home. Like, and I just remember being so heartbroken, and just like, oh my gosh, like none of that meant nothing. Like, and then I'm like throwing like everything I'd gained out the window in my mind and felt like I had regressed, like worse than even when I went in. And then I'm like, whoa, slow this down, you know? And what I realized was that, first of all, when they say you're bubble wrapped in a treatment center, we are. I mean, you're there with a bunch of people trying to learn how to grow, how to be the nicest person they can. And like, and we're in close quarters all the time. So I would say that people are trying extra hard to be nice in there too, you know? And you come out and you're with family, say, and you're with somebody that you hurt that hasn't had the benefit of being bubble wrapped for 35 days or however long your treatment is. And they're
Mm-hmm.
still probably pretty resentful on the things you did, the lies you had, the way it hurt them, how you made them scared in my circumstance. And that was a lesson for me about compassion. Like it was a lesson to be like, whoa, like, first of all, she's not where I am now, and nor can I expect her to be ever. And I'm not saying I was above her, but I was saying that I had spent 30, like the only time in my life that I spent 35 days working on me, you know? And if somebody wants to say that that doesn't change anything, then they've never really tried and been wholehearted in it in the same way. Like, I just feel that it is something that can't help but change you. And what I realized was it made me step back and think how many years she had put up with me in a state where I wasn't doing anything. Like, and I realized at that point, I'm like, you have to now put the shoe on the other foot and give her time to be okay. you know and that was a big lesson, and a big lesson in like getting out of myself and actually trying to understand someone else's place where they are, like meeting them where they're at. And so that was the difficulty, because I mean, our instinct is that selfish, self-centered, like they need to, if only they would play their part. If only you would be so happy I just got home. If only you would just forgive me for everything. We could skip along into the sunset of recovery. Like that's just not the world. Like we have to
No.
earn trust. We have to earn forgiveness. Like it really is something that we have to do through our living amends and our actual amends. And so that's one. And then, another one for me would be just the whole resurrendering in March 2025. Like I really was at a plateau. I was really kind of starting to think that I was the defect shortcoming removal man. I'm like, I got my job, I got my shirt, got my badge. I'm going to get rid of my defects. Watch this anger go. And nothing was going anywhere. And I had to start surrendering and, changing my prayer and changing my life really again. And I was really actually happy to see that, first of all, that I was wrong. And second of all, that there was another alternative and that I had just forgotten it through ignorance.
Oh, I
Yeah.
love that.
Mm.
It's like sometimes we just need to get that little shake up, right? To understand. And you were able to learn the love, tolerance, compassion, and ultimately patience.
Mm.
We hear about in the rooms how to practice that, right? In your immediate family. And yeah, it's like we come out, we're all woo. We've
Yeah.
learned this, we're floating a bit, we're happy. There's some fear too, but you've been around like-minded people
Yeah.
and whole community. And now you're with some, now you got to start facing some consequences of your actions in real life. And you
Yeah.
don't have that bubble. there
Well, in treatment, we're just facing the consequences of our lives inside ourselves, which is not,
with ourselves, not with
yeah,
other people that are
yeah,
that we
yeah.
love.
And that's that bubble wrap, man. Is that bubble wrap is that it's just us. And, like we only drop ourselves as hard as we want to, right? But other people are like, ooh, let's see if you let's see if you bounce. And you on this question?
Hmm. I'm trying to think about
It's
how,
kind of like a whoa, how far do I go?
I know, like there's so many, right? But trying to think of some things too, even in like my first time and in the rooms. Okay, well, I'll talk about dating and how I chose. So when I was in addiction, what I was looking for certainly isn't what I have in my life today, what I thought I was looking for. And that didn't change much just because I got sober. I still didn't have any of those tools, or nobody had ever shown me a healthy relationship. So I certainly wasn't going to be able to create one. And yeah, I wasn't patient. I wasn't trusting God. It was still a lot of self-will, right? So when I think back like to dating in early recovery, which they have advised strongly against. But, I was in my early 30s when I came in and I thought, "Hmm," heard that mentioned, in a couple meetings, and I was like, that doesn't really apply to me. So I think I've shared on this podcast before, like, I roll my eyes out at my first ever AA meeting. And then as soon as I go to get up and I see an entourage of men still sick, welcoming me to the meeting. It's like my tears dried themselves. And I was like, well, hi guys, thank you. So it was like older gentleman that's like women with women, men with men, like the same drunk asshole that hit on you in the bar, doing the same thing. They're just in here now. And I was like, ooh, this is quite the tight ship, but I'll find a loophole around that. So it was like I was still had codependent tendencies, not much self-love, right? At all, actually. And I was attracting what I thought I was worthy of, but I didn't realize at the time. So there was definitely some trials and tribulations through that. And, they say that the people in our fellowship that have time say, you want to be careful about that stuff because it could lead you to relapse or you both ending up relapsing together. And he didn't, but I did. And it wasn't after that. It was because I just didn't really want to do the work. I didn't want to do step four or anything after. So, I don't blame him, but I certainly had no business trying to be in a relationship when I couldn't even form one with myself. I didn't have one with my higher power yet or with me. What good was I to someone else? So, yeah, like those are some tough lessons. And I had to take a long look at like, what was I looking at for? Physical attributes, just like I did in addiction, except I needed them to, be able to party like I could and also bring something to the table that was of benefit to me. And they gave, a bit of that protector vibe. That was great too, right? So like it was all shallow.
I, it's funny because I do agree to a certain extent about the weight, to go in a relationship. But I will tell you from the outsider's perspective of watching friends, nothing relapses faster than a lonely addict as well. And that's so there's like these, it's a double-edged sword, like because Um, I'm just not sure where the solution lies, but I know from somebody who's watched people, loneliness takes as many people out as relationships does in my my like what I've
100%.
witnessed.
And, this is controversial, but so am I.
Yeah,
So we're just gonna,
we're
just
rolling
gonna
with it.
just gonna let it roll, right?
Yeah,
Throw the dice here. So it doesn't say in our literature, and we did not get romantically involved with anyone for the first
Hmm.
365 days of our recovery.
Yeah.
It doesn't say that anywhere.
No.
We're also not telling people who are in committed relationships, you gotta, when you get out, you also gotta pack up and leave because
Hmm.
you're not ready to be in a healthy relationship. And that person isn't either because they didn't be an Al Anon, right?
Hmm.
So, like, there's suggestions that are made through via the fellowship, right?
Hmm.
Because ultimately, no one wants to see somebody, two sick people attracted to each other that take each other out,
Hmm.
right? And I understand that. But like one of my favorite speakers says, "Oh, here's my favorite one. Don't get in a relationship for the first year." Nobody knows if that works. Nobody's ever done it. Like when he says
Yeah.
that, right? And I was like, I feel like he's right. And I know there's people out there that are listening that are like, I didn't do that. So let me just say what I'm trying to say here in a real roundabout way. I messed up in the first year in the same way I messed up in year three, in year two, in year four, until I learned what I needed to learn.
Yeah.
And it takes some time to get to know you, your authentic self. First of all, you have to grow in the uncomfortability of that. I needed to learn who I was without drugs and alcohol, what I actually liked, self con gain some self confidence, some self worth, some self love. And the stronger and healthier I got, the healthier of a partner I attracted. And it
Hmm.
wasn't until this time around and the work that I've done in my life, like that I can say, like, I didn't know what a healthy relationship was. I'm in one now and I'm grateful for that, but I'm still fumbling my way through it, right? Because there's
Hmm.
no blueprint. But I look for today, what I value in my relationship, did I want those things? Always in the past, but I wasn't able to provide them, and I certainly wasn't able to channel someone into my life that had those.
Well, and maybe you couldn't even define them clearly.
Yes, that. This is why I love this podcast with you,
Oh.
is because I have a hard time, like, getting out sometimes what I'm thinking, and you know what I'm thinking,
Hmm.
and you just
Yeah.
come in with the zingers. So, yeah, this real long explanation that halfway through, I think I forgot what I was talking about, so thanks, guys, for bearing with me on this roller coaster, is that those have been learning lessons for me.
Mm.
But who
Yeah.
doesn't go through those? Find
Yeah.
me a person who's been single for a chunk of time in their life and has dated that isn't like, girl or bro, I don't know what I was thinking in this one, right? Because loneliness happens and we so desperately want to
Hmm.
meet somebody great. So it's like you're willing to not look at certain things, to focus on
I
others.
think too, like one of the things when we meet people, it's almost like we see what we want to see in the beginning. Like so many times, like, and I'm not talking just about loved ones, but also with friends. It's like I'll enjoy one aspect of them so much that I can't see those other things that would be the demise of the relationship clearly in the beginning. Because it's like the other aspects of that person is shining so bright that I'm just like, I can't see that. I don't understand what you're talking about. And then all of a sudden, it's like, once that bright, shining part gets a little dimmed, I'm like, that's all I see is all these other things in people, like, and so I think, one of the sayings, like, since I've had that crazy fiance, this was way before recovery, but I say the brightest lights cast the deepest shadows, you know, and it's 100% true with people, you know. It's absolutely like the most dynamic people always have the most dynamic insanity too.
Totally. And I remember like in my early 20s when I was still in Ontario, and I'm going to rephrase this so that it's appropriate on this podcast.
Hmm.
But I worked with um, this bartender, and we were also really good friends. He was awesome. And he told me something. He said, Shannon, I don't care how hot, how amazing, how, like sexy a woman is. there's some guy out there that's sick and tired of putting up with her shit. And I was like, wow. And like that already stood out with me, like
Yeah.
this stuff's only going to get you so far because
Mm,
you think you base a relationship on that when you're younger and you're going to grow old with that person,
mm.
like, and there's times where I don't care how good looking somebody is, like they're going to get under your skin. And I'm to others as you are. Like, it's just part of human nature, right? So yeah, I didn't know those things, wasn't able to identify them, but I've learned so much along the way. And even when I talk to people that like are married, like women that are married, I find this fascinating because I like to know, right? Like 10 years is a long time. How long you've been married is even longer, right?
Ooh,
And
we're going to be have been together 25 years next April.
as my
That's
mom would say, yeah, I've hit 25 years too. It just wasn't all in the same marriage. It was my marriages accumulated.
Ma, I love that.
It's a funny one. So yeah, like that's a really, really long time, right? And it's not like sunshine and rainbows and frolicking through
Ooh,
and
no.
like ebbs and flows. And you've gone through so many different stages and different decades with that person. Like
Yeah.
she's seen you not just, attic you, but she's seen you as a different person in so many stages of life and vice
Mm,
versa.
yeah.
So like when I talk to people that have been in marriages that long or, like my sister's in-laws, I think they're coming up on like 50 something years, 60 or something crazy like that. Think, wow, like what they have gone through. So you can generate like a lot of advice and good strength from those people
I
because
say we're together by the power of her forgiveness.
see,
Like,
like, and to
honestly,
me, like
like there,
I've
I
never been
tested
married.
the outer rims of forgiveness in this relationship.
You're like, and this is a line I've towed. But yeah, I haven't been married yet in my life. And so I'm still like interested in learning those kind of things. But yeah, and those people that have been married and like are on another marriage or single, like they learn from things too, right? So it doesn't
Mm,
matter how well you think you know things. Someone like there are red flags that
yeah.
we miss. And
I
I,
say that your friends and lovers are the peoples whose faults you tolerate.
well, it's true. I've been in friendships that weren't healthy for me for such a long,
Mm,
many, many years, right?
mm,
Almost like a marriage in a lot of ways. Till like the light goes off and I'm like, wow, this isn't a healthy friendship, right?
mm.
So, of course, like if we're willing to let those go on, we will stay with romantic partners longer than we should have. But you know what? I learned from a lot of them.
Yeah.
Also some hard lessons because there's some things I look back on, I'm like, what was I thinking? And I just want to beat myself up about it.
But knowing what we won't tolerate is as important as knowing what we will tolerate. Like my bad engagement and crazy ex partner taught me exactly what kind of abuse I will never accept in my life again, ever. Like if anything ever goes near that, I'm like, hey, ready to walk. And I don't care. Like, I don't care if it was 25 years with Michelle. If she started exhibiting some of what that other lady did, I would be like, gone, gone. Sorry. No, this is like, no, nobody's going to hit me and nobody's going to hit me with words like that ever again. You know? And it's okay. But it was really important to learn that, even if it was a terrible lesson at the time. Okay, I've got another question for you. Are you ready?
Mhm.
Okay, close your eyes. We're going on a mystical journey. Recovery doesn't ask us to be perfect, it asks us to pay attention and correct when we were off. What does course correction look like for you today, Shannon B?
Mm, 10, like living in 10, right? I
Hmm.
practice 10 every day to the best of my ability. So I've got a pretty good radar now, from being in recovery on and off such a long time, also from making mistakes and, learning lessons quite quickly that I can clock pretty fast in myself. Ooh, like I get that gross feeling like I didn't handle that well. So when I am not proud of the way that I've shown up in a situation, or spoke to somebody, the way I handled something, if I'm stuck in ego, I'm going to feel justified in that, right? So ring a ding ding to my sponsor, to a trusted member of my inner circle, where I'm like, hey, I need some help with this one. I know I didn't handle this well, but I'm having a real trouble seeing my part as I feel justified in it. And you put somebody that can help you. I'll make the amends where necessary, quickly. And I ask God, please help me that when this comes up again, to handle things differently. This is how I wish that I would. And I'm going to take accountability. Then I don't beat myself up and obsess about it anymore. I start be of service to someone else.
Mm,
So
brother,
that really is what helps me in that.
that's amazing. Okay, recovery doesn't ask us to be perfect. It asks us to pay attention and correct when we were off. What does course correction look like for me today? Well, I 100% agree on the step 10. I mean, my friend Andrew calls me step 10 Starcic. I've I can make amends by the end of a podcast if I've done something wrong at the beginning. It's my thing, and it's the only way that I can keep myself in my sanity and sane. So that course correction really for me it looks like admitting when I'm wrong. Seeing my part in it, seeing what I should have done. Like what I should have done and communicating that so that it's like I'm kind of you know I'm confessing in advance for the future of that I don't want to do that, like in explaining that. But part of it now, like I think I was telling you about that two-way prayer a little bit maybe the other week. So now I've just passed doing it for 2 weeks, and one of the things about it is that or my defects and my shortcomings that I'm trying to, humbly ask to be taken away from me here is that I'm asking for help with those inside my two-way prayer. And what's coming back as the responses in that is kind of like some tips from the universe about how to start to be better. And so my course correction now is sometimes happening in advance of the event. Like I'm asking for help. The help is coming, and I'm trying to keep these things in some sort of level of my consciousness throughout the day and to be changing in advance of making those mistakes. And so it's actually a really cool, really magical thing. Like one of the things that came, and I know you're going to be like, huh, that seems so simple. But for me, one of the things for me to not get angry with people is to more frequently think gratitude about the people around me in the day. So, like, wherever I am, if I'm in a new situation and I'm finding myself, like, even before I'm finding myself ticked off, it's like, think of 5 things you love about that person, like just in your head. And I'm like trying to like think those things. And then it's keeping me from being in such a negative space. And so it's a really cool thing. So that's one of my things for that.
Thank you for that. That's a great, powerful tool that I am going to hopefully remember to start doing.
Yeah,
And
I'll remind you.
thank you, because I could learn from that, you know, especially when you're still seeing a lingering amount of resentment, which to me
Hmm.
is still a resentment, right?
Yeah.
Not like the
And
tail.
it's like a lie. Like small resentment is still a resentment. There is no white
Exactly.
resentment or white
No, there's
lies.
not in my brain,
No.
it's full on resentment.
Yeah.
So,
If you pee in the pool, there's still pee in the pool. It doesn't matter how big the pool is.
or how much I pee, right? So
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
so you're right. I like that analogy now. But that's a good to practice, and that's tough. So that will be helpful if I can't even think of 5 things, then I know that's a full-blown resentment, and we've got to
Yeah.
do far deeper work, right?
Sometimes it's only shoes. I'm like, oh, they've got nice shoes. And it's
Right.
like, well, they're great shoe selectors. You have
Um,
another question for me?
I like that. Yeah, so we're talking about course correction and everything. So I know we both work with others, which is phenomenal. How do you how do you guide mere sponsees or the men in your life that, call you and ask for guidance when they're so used to handling things one way that they feel justified in the tit for tat or the retaliation?
Well, it seems like those conversations come up often. Like there's the shoulda and I deserve. And for myself, that's been something that I've been trying to dispel in my own reactions, right? And so I think that one of the things I do is I admit my own weaknesses and talk about how I am trying to, use the solution in my life. And I think that we like just like with children, we can only lead by example. And so it's like we can talk shit all we want, but if we talk about our life, how we've changed things, and the results that we're having from those changes, that to me is really the most useful tool. Um, and another thing I'm doing with a couple of my sponsees is I found a PDF with like 100 spiritual principles on it. And every day we just touch base. We like go down the list. So in the next number, we both talk about either how we're using that spiritual principle in our life right now or how we're failing to, and or both sometimes. Sometimes we're doing all right with it here and failing over here, and sometimes we just don't even know if we have any of it or how to define it. Like sometimes it's us looking it up to see what it actually means, right? And so that for me is really kind of at this point how I'm doing that with my sponsees and with my friends and just in life in general, you know? Because when I find a little win, I can't help but share it. Like because it makes I'm just like, wow, I'm like, it's the kind of thing I would want to hear from someone. Like I'm a firm believer. Nowhere in our literature does it say show up and take a shit on a meeting. Like it's literally, like I'm happy for you to come with a mess, but then either be seeking a solution or showing how you're using the solution. You know,
Mhm.
like it doesn't say carry the mess to the still suffering alcoholic. It says carry the message. Like it literally says it right in the steps.
Isn't that true?
Yeah. So I'll leave that there and hand it to you.
Mhm. I've talked about this before, right? Of us not having the dubious luxury of anger, and staying in it because that compounds, and it's the entitlement again, it's the justification, and it's the pour me a drink, right?
Mm.
So I can't stay in that. Some days it's hard. Like I'm always
Ooh, yeah.
honest on this thing, and I'm
Yeah.
like, no, there's been some deep resentments that I've been like, just when I think, it's safe. It's safe. What's that thing like? Just when you think it's safe to go in the water, right? Like just when I think it's lifted, catch
Things
me
happen
a bit
fast,
of in
man.
a bit of a mood, and it's back, and now it's back
Hmm.
with a vengeance. And
Hmm.
I will say this: some of the hardest resentment to lift is the one where this person has to be in my life in some
Hmm.
extent. Not my immediate, but by a few degrees of separation, like, and you're having to, still deal with their sick, toxic behaviors, and you're trying to learn how to not take that on, let that affect you, and not retaliate. Like
Yeah.
I came in day one in this program, 2013, whatever it was, with that an eye for an eye mentality.
Oh, 100%.
Not just that, but you do this to me, I'm gonna do this and do it better, right? Like confrontation, not a problem. Anger, not a problem, like all those things, right? So but then like so fearful inside of other things. So yeah, it's always a little bit of a roller coaster with us. But yeah, so I, of course, when I'm working with other women, I hear them like, oh, wait till I tell you what happened. And I'm like, how did you handle that? Ooh, okay. So do you think maybe you gas that one up a bit, poured a little fuel on the fire? And like,
Hmm.
well, that's irrelevant because of X, Y, and Z, right? And it's like listening to myself when I was in
Yeah.
treatment and I was explaining, what my ex had said to me. And my counselor's like, okay, so before that, asking me some questions. And I'm like, I don't think you're quite getting this here. This isn't about what I said or did before. It's
Mhm.
about what they said, period. The
Yeah.
end,
Yeah.
But she was trying to teach me, like it says in the book, did we not in fact get the ball rolling?
Yeah.
100 per, and I still can.
Yeah.
So when I'm working with other women, I'm like, look, you're not here to play God because you're playing God in one area of your life. You haven't turned your will in your life over to God. Like how you said, it's not like this is a more of a lie than this, right?
Hmm.
We don't get to say, God, I'm going to give you my finances. I'm going to give you my recovery. I'm going to give you this. But, so and so, I'll take this one,
Yeah.
I'll do the labor on this one.
Hmm.
It doesn't work that way
No.
because we get in that anger and we get stuck in that tunnel and we get in that retaliation, that tit for tat, we get sicker.
Hmm.
Homie, don't play that. So,
Homie, don't play that.
and I really do like when sometimes my sons are like, yeah, I don't know about that one. I'm like, listen, there's nobody who wanted to take their will back stronger than me in some of this stuff.
Yeah.
Like I said, I remember driving with an early sponsor and, so my Bluetooth telling me, oh, I caution you, on this anger thing. And I was like, ha 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 ha. If this program's going to teach me to roll over and just take shit from people, you're sadly mistaken. Like
Hmm.
this isn't for me. And I learned why she was telling me that because,
Yeah.
you know, more well-rounded person can be pissed off. They can like let it go or they vent it out to their husband or their friend or whatever, and they're onwards and upwards. I'm marinating in that stuff for days on end, thinking
Yeah.
of a way to be justified in how I want to handle things.
Yeah. Exactly.
Closed off from God completely. So no, 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 can't be doing that. Also, it's not worth it. Like, why am I giving somebody this kind of energy and power over me?
Exactly. We're just puppets when we do that.
And I hear that, and nothing irks me more than go knowing that. Like, oh,
Yeah.
wait a second, I'm letting them,
Yeah.
win more. No, 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 no. So if my ultimate way of freedom from that and
Mhm.
spiritual retaliation is to let it go and
Yep.
go, God's going to sort this one out for me
Yeah.
and better than I will. Not giving this person any energy. That's what they want, to get a reaction out of me. I'm going to be over here living my best life. That's that
Nice.
is the ultimate freedom.
Okie dokie. I got another question for you.
Yeah.
Admitting wrong doesn't weaken us, it reconnects us to our power and our people. How has owning a mistake strengthened your relationships in recovery?
Mm. So that's one thing I can say, you know, has really changed for me and how much I've really grown, especially to where I'm at today, is I know I'm human. I don't use it to justify piss poor behavior, but when I'm wrong, I can quickly admit that. I can take accountability. Sometimes it's still hard to hear, like especially in relationships when like, well, you see a pattern in yourself and you're like, "Ugh," right? But it's an opportunity to grow. So that's humility, right? And that's what God wants. He doesn't ask me to be perfect. He just asked me to be humble, willing to try and to correct things and live better and to treat people the way I want to be treated, right?
Hmm.
I heard somebody like I don't feel good about it. Even if I can write down 10 ways why I'm justified in the way I handled that conversation, I'm not. I
Hmm.
might feel it in the moment, but nobody's gonna fault you. Nobody healthy at least, right? Or
Hmm.
nobody that you want to have a good relationship with is gonna fault you for saying, "Hey, you know what? I'm not proud of the way I spoke to you yesterday or today. And,
Hmm.
I'm sorry for that. I was in my feelings, I was in my ego, and you didn't deserve that. Please
Hmm.
accept my apology." A lot of people don't do that, right?
Hmm.
So that's never been, well, unless that person's real sick too, has that been, received with, yeah, well, you are awful and this, and this. It's like, hey, thanks, and sometimes that person might see some fault in the way they handled things and say that back to you. But even if they don't, like, it's not about that, right? It's not so that they'll apologize to me. It's so that I can keep my side of the street clean. But when you continue to keep acting in outrageous behaviors and not take any responsibility for it, that's one way to get somebody to push somebody away or to get your character called into question.
Hmm.
It's kind of like, oh, I wasn't embarrassed by, how drunk and belligerent I was at times in addiction. Like, didn't care that people saw me hammered out of my mind or like waxed off my ass, because that's just how I rolled. But I was worried about what people would think about me when I said I was sober.
Hmm. Yeah, that's the most ridiculous part. At first I was like, oh, I'm like, I'll be quiet about my recovery. And now I'm like, screw this. Like, the other people who are dying like I was need to know there's a solution. And if I help save one life, I'm happy with everybody knowing about me
Yeah.
and my recovery.
And firsthand for me is like, I'm sober in every area of my life, right?
Hmm.
Because when I was, hmm, I don't really drink that much or that often.
Yeah, right.
It's
Yeah.
like I unlocked that excuse for me because I knew ultimately what I was doing is I was creating a gateway for me to be able to drink again. So that's a lie. No, I don't.
Mhm.
Like, it
I
wasn't that
look,
I didn't drink often, it's that I hadn't drank in almost 7 years because I'm an alcoholic. But
yeah.
I couldn't say that, and I'm not saying I walk around to anybody I meet, "Shannon, alcoholic, burned my life to the ground almost on multiple occasions. Grace of God, I'm here today." Like, tell me about you.
I
Like,
do. I punch him in the belly while I'm saying it.
I mean, like, there are professional situations and settings, right,
Yeah.
where that doesn't need to be disclosed. But if somebody says, "Oh, you're not drinking," I say, "I don't drink."
Mm.
Not, "Nah, I'm not drinking tonight," because that is the first lie of omission I'm telling myself. And then that is a pathway back to feeling like I can drink again. And it's the same in everything else, right? Like, some people have a real hard time with amends. It is sometimes an icky feeling, but hey, I've already done it.
Mm.
All I'm doing is coming and taking responsibility for my actions. Like, that's the least I should be doing. Welcome to adulthood.
The first client I told, I was all like, oh, I don't know, kind of nervous. I'm like, I'm going to tell her. And she's like, oh, I've been in the program 3 years. Which meetings do you go to? Blah, 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 blah. I was like, oh, okay. I'm like, there we go. Like all of my fear in that circumstance was 100% unfounded.
What I think is interesting, and it does show to me, that God is watching, is
Mm.
when I've had to go back into situations that I've been at in previous, right? And
Mm.
my career in my life where I've been real nervous about that drinking thing coming up, right?
Mm.
And I haven't been completely honest. Obviously, that's what, led up to me relapsing, is when I'm preparing for similar situations I'm going to walk into, because I haven't been shy in being honest. Like, I do not drink.
Yep.
period. Like that's a complete sentence. So many little miracles have happened along the way that God's like, oh, well, guess who you're saying this to? Or,
Mm.
like it's just shown me that being honest and being true to myself is so much easier because you're going to come across people in your path, like you just said, that you wouldn't have or wouldn't have felt comfortable to share that with you because you weren't being honest.
Mm. I feel that there's a point for me, like, I don't necessarily come up like, hi, I'm Milan from Remax, addict.
100%.
But the thing is that I do feel that there comes a point in my job where I either have to be honest or not. Like, and just because the topic of drinking comes up almost with everybody. I live in wine country. Like most people moving here are moving here to hide out with a bunch of other alcoholics and drink themselves to death. Like it's really true. And sorry for any clients out there who are mild drinkers, but th- you're in the minority. But so the truth of it is that there hasn't been one single person who I've told who either hasn't had some issue themselves, a direct family member, or are looking for an advice on what to do with a family member. You know,
And that's so true. And
and
like
then
you
it
said,
opens the
like
door to service right there.
like you said before, like there's not, this is a little lie, like just a
Mhm.
lie.
Yeah, that's right. And it comes to a point where I could be like, like when you're like, yeah, I don't drink that often, like never in 7 years because I'm an alcoholic.
And then once I'm starting to lie to myself, that's
Yeah,
when the, you know,
yeah.
that's when the
Like
brake lines are getting cut and this is getting crazy.
a lady that we had on the podcast, she calls it insurance. And when she goes out with a group of people, she's like, hey, everybody, I'm an addict alcoholic. She's like, I'm just telling you so you don't offer me anything so that I can keep my sobriety, which is really precious to me. And she said that she's never had anybody hassle her about not drinking or doing drugs. And it's totally stopped the people offering her incessantly throughout the night. She calls it her insurance policy on an event. And I just loved it. I thought, what a great way to do that. Like wear
And
it like a badge and get yourself help before you need help.
and she did just take out that insurance
Yeah,
policy
that's what
for
I mean.
honesty, right? Because like her response was nobody pressured me. Well, let me tell you
Yeah,
something. When you have truth it and you're like, I don't really
yeah,
drink, that's what opens for, well, let's just have one with me.
yeah, yeah. It's okay. It's okay. We're
And
just
then I'm
gonna.
like, yeah, I've
You can
already
have a
known
light
you.
beer. You can have a light beer. Yeah.
Sure, I'll have a cocktail with you, then before you know it, I'm like the drunkest one there, like,
Keep on going. Yeah.
oh,
Okay, so no, what question? Okay, admitting wrong doesn't weaken us; it reconnects us to our power and our people. How has owning a mistake strengthened my relationships in recovery? You know, I could think of a few for sure, but right off the bat, the first thing that comes up is just regularly doing that step 10, like over and over and over and over. And it shows that, first of all, that I'm human, but that I'm really trying to change, and that I keep making mistakes, but I'm recognizing them and I'm trying to course correct. I've had conversations with family members really recently and said, does it seem like I'm getting better, on these things, on things that I would like to think I am, but it's real easy for me to give myself an attaboy and them still be hurt, right? Like for somebody else to acknowledge it, if asked to answer honestly, it feels good. It feels good that there is that potential. And it also has strengthened my relationships, like owning a mistake has strengthened my relationships with my sponsees, where I think that it has helped them to open up to me on a greater level, and it's also discussing my mistakes or situations in life have brought me closer to my sponsor, and then overall talking about my mistakes and my solutions at meetings, I think has strengthened my relationship with my fellowship as a whole. It's just brought a greater level. Like, when somebody comes in and goes deep on the first share, those are the meetings that generally just go off like a fireworks, like where it's like everybody's okay. Like, it's like, oh, okay, permission for vulnerability, engage, and everybody just becomes more vulnerable. So, yeah, I would say that that's my answer to that question. Do you have another question, Shannon?
I like that. Yes, I was just thinking, can you share with us when you've really struggled with that? Like when there's something that's come up where you're like, I know that I was wrong in this situation, but I just can't bring myself to make amends because I truly believe, and I'm learning this deeper and deeper, that our perception becomes our reality.
Mm-hmm.
And you
Absolutely.
can shift that at any time. So, have you had situations where you're like, "Ugh,
Yeah, the very hardest for me is, shedding myself of the you should or the I deserve. Like, that was the gateway to my intolerance, my lack of acceptance of others, and my anger. Like, it was the way that I would be like, well, fuck you, I'm going to use. Like, it was the direct path to my fuck you button. And so even in sobriety, when I'm not feeling the temptation to use, I certainly feel the same temptation to react the same way that I trained myself for all those years, right? And so getting myself to first of all like back off my instant response of anger or intolerance or whatever, that has come with a long path of making myself more and more aware of how those actions affect others. And I think I've said it before on this show. It's like, intolerance towards a child over and over makes them grow up thinking that everything they do is wrong. Like like children believe adults, right? And so it's like, how many times are you with families where you see the attention that the child gets is only when it's bugging its parent because the parent's half oblivious, and I was half oblivious at points, for sure. Like I would like to say that I segmented, straightness and oblivion to a certain degree with my daughter. Like while she was in school, I didn't get wasted on school nights. Like that was like a rule. But man, catch you later on the weekends. It was absolutely. So it was like there was a bit of a Jekyll and Hyde situation going on there, you know? And I know for a fact that my intolerance and lack of acceptance had a part to play in her own sense of self-worth and confidence. And that, that definitely hurts. But all I can do now is change, right? And and so I'm really trying not to let things get to the same point. And how I'm doing that is, you know, by by doing my two-way prayer, by praying my gratitudes, by trying to deliver myself in a better state than I ever have. And it's, to a lot of degrees, it's working. I'm for sure not the same person that I was even 6 months ago.
the course correction that we talk about." Um, I remember one of my earlier counselors telling us, like, it's when you're like, "Oh, I just want somebody to be with, blah, blah, blah. I just want somebody around." Like, it's like, it's somebody. Right? Like anybody's going to
Ooh.
fit the bill when you're not thinking highly of yourself and you're not trusting God, right?
Mm.
And like that's where harms are caused. Because for me, and I've owned this before in the past, and in addiction, like when I was at real low points, right? Like want somewhat of an enabler around me, a source of comfort, right? that I would lean into, and they'd think they were building a real connection with me. But the minute that the fog was lifted, right, and I was back on my A game, no need for that person anymore, right? Like it's just such an distorted ego way of treating others. And if I look back on people I had no business letting in my life the way that I did to begin with, and I caused them harm. But I don't want to look at that because I feel guilt, shame, remorse, or disgust, or whatever the case may be, right? There be in friendships and dating and people I've chose to hang out with, right? If I've still caused harm, I've caused harm, period. And it'll be my ego that keeps me from taking a look at that. So I have to take accountability for everything. It's starting with, clearly wasn't well in those decisions that I made. How am I going to not make those decisions again? Well, I'm not going to react from a place of loneliness, right? Like it's like that halt, hungry,
Hmm.
angry, lonely, tired. We can show up at some of the worst versions of ourselves in those moments. And for us, the reason why we are very like it's driven in, it's educated into us so much to be cautious of those stuff is because that leads to using, right? Like if I'm
Hmm.
super lonely and isolated, I'm going to let people in my life that I normally wouldn't when I was full spiritually.
Hmm.
Or I'm going to react to somebody because I'm very angry in a way I wouldn't react if I was more balanced. So having to sit in that and not do anything but pray
Hmm.
and trust the process, those are huge moments of growth for me. Like I remember, I think I was like year two something, and remember I was in such tremendous emotional pain, and I was not going to act out in a defect to try to get through that because it's the instant gratification. I want the relief, right? Instead, I remember I was crying myself to sleep. I was listening to speakers. I was praying like you wouldn't believe. God, I'm in pain. Help me through this. And it lifted. And I at least didn't have it lift and then go, oh God, what did I do when I was in that cyclone? Right.
Hmm.
No, I let myself feel those feelings and be in that uncomfortability so that I could grow and learn. The worst thing is coming out of like one of these emotional blackouts, I say, and then you're like looking at the wreckage around you and you're like, I hope this amends this, it, like, that's a lot.
I love the emotional blackouts.
No,
It's like
they're
it's
fun
so
ones.
similar to that substance blackout, but I love it. And I don't know if I've heard that term before.
I don't think I've used it. I think it just came to me in this, but that's what it's like,
It's
right?
exactly like that. It's like what happened? Unfortunately, in those emotional blackouts, I usually remember, but I'm blacked out while it's happening.
Exactly, but I'll remember tenfold when, you know, I
Yeah.
start to like Stella got her groove back a bit here, and then it's like, uh-oh, what did I do?
Hmm.
So that course correction is great. And just the patience, like it's so easy to say to somebody else, put your fear aside and trust God. Like more is going to be revealed. Stay the course.
Mm. Live
Great,
and let
all
live
great, great, advice to give until you have to take it yourself.
until it's coming at 140 kilometers an hour right into your face.
Until you're in excruciating emotional pain and
Hmm.
you're like, oh, I have to stay the course. When our solution has always been to make it worse by giving temporarily relief. Make it worse
Yes.
long term, but I
Mm.
can't feel pain. I can't feel this. Like, how quickly can I get out of this?
Mm.
Now it's like, I have to stay in this. And
Yeah.
it's going to lift, but
Mm.
it's not going to lift my way.
No, it's not. Okay, are you ready for a question?
Sure am.
Okay, a spiritual life doesn't mean we don't fall. It means we know how to rise. What step helps you most when you're in the middle of an emotional relapse? That goes good with your question right there.
Three, right? It's turning it over to God,
Hmm.
100%.
Hmm.
The complete surrender. what you talk about is
Mm,
that, like, that's crucial. It doesn't mean always do it, right? Like any good addict, I gotta, dig the hole a little deeper, get into enough emotional pain that I realize, like, I'm still trying to run the show.
mm,
And so yeah, 3, I turn my will and my life over to God in all areas of my life.
mhm.
So in those real trying moments, if I'm getting my back up and I'm like, no, 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 like that's self-will.
Yeah.
So I need to realign and say, okay, God, I I need you to take the wheel on this one, and I'm gonna sit back and let you drive this car. Not I'm going to,
Mhm,
backseat drive a bit, right? Because that's gonna prolong the suffering. Like realizing that I am the one prolonging my suffering, the
mhm.
more I keep going up against God's will for me.
Yeah.
Surrender, let it go, and trust God. And in the meantime, start making some better decisions and handling things in a better way.
Yeah.
Deepening my connection with God, not ruining my connection with another human being.
I love that. Okay, a spiritual life doesn't mean we don't fall. It means we know how to rise. What step helps me most when I'm in the middle of emotional relapse? You know, these days I'm gonna say for me it's step 11. And that's like that's greatly to do right now with my practice of that two-way prayer and having that, kind of as my guide through my defects and shortcomings and getting some real-time advice from the universe. When I put the responses up against honest, pure, unselfish, and loving, if they pass those tests and I'm following that as part of my day, there's a pretty good chance I'm having a good part of my day. Like if I'm acting honest, pure, unselfish, and loving, like, I can't imagine me having a whole bunch of defects coming out during that period. Like those are four really great measuring sticks to put your life up against. And when you start, like when I started, and I did one like right on the podcast I did with that guy, it was like every single thing I put was selfish. Every single thing. And I was like, whoa. I'm like, okay, I'm not having an unselfish thought right now. And even just to start to direct your thinking in that way is like it's pretty eye opening when you start like being like, okay, what is truly unselfish? It's like, whoop, that's gone, that's gone, that's gone, that's gone, that's gone, that's gone. Like it's like, whoa, I just thought of five more selfish things. Gone, gone, gone. Like like gone, gone. But it's a really really interesting part for me right now in my own mind and evolution to be like there was a reason I met the guy who turned me on to this, and there's a reason that I'm going down this path now, because I think that it is almost the only way for me to gain more acceptance and tolerance and a deeper surrender is by having those four absolutes as more of my yardstick in my existence. And am I seeking perfection? I'm seeking the best that I can do right now. And at least right now, I know that I'm actually trying to be better. I'm not like simulated trying. Like I'm really actually trying. So it's quite a different place to be in my life. There's a lot more peace. What I've learned in the last 2.5 weeks is right from here, the back of my head to the right here in my neck. That's where peace exists. And it's like because when I take away a lot of the what I'm going to do stress or what have I done stress, that's what relaxes right there in me, you know? So it's
I
good.
like what you just said, that, you know, knowing like isn't enough. You have to be applying it, right? Like in what you're learning.
Mm,
And that's the truth, right? Like it's like when you're going off about something and somebody tells you something, you're like, yeah, I know, I know, I know. Like knowing but not doing doesn't matter. It's like say my house
Faith without
needs,
works is dead.
right? It's like, so my house, like, I'm just throwing an example. Say I know my house needs to be painted. Just because I know how to paint that house, that's not enough to fix it. I have to
That's it.
actually apply the paint.
Mm,
So it's like, just because I know I'm in self-will,
mm.
if I don't get out of it by praying, waiting for God to reveal the answers to me and not trying to run the show myself, that's not enough. I have to actually apply that. Oh, okay. I'm
Mm.
trying to drive the bus here and I keep crashing into the wall, right? Oh, I know I shouldn't, but
Yeah.
what else,
What
right?
else?
I know I need to get out of the driver's seat and trust God.
Mm.
That's great. However, right? Like, it's not enough if I don't actually practice it.
Well, and it's like also what I find for myself is, just distinguishing my will and God's will, right? Is like there's a lot of times you can be like, I'm acting in God's will, and it's just you lying again to yourself. And so when I'm saying, you put it up against those four absolutes of honest, pure, unselfish, and loving, and even if it is just you, at least it's the good part of you, you know? And that's just something that I don't think is happening with a lot of people. You
Well, we're
know?
great at lying to others, but also great at lying to us. More than anything, we're great at lying to ourselves, right?
Yeah.
So it's, yeah, like, frick, back in the day, I used to think it was God's will if my will worked out. Oh, God's will.
Yeah, yeah. Well, exactly. Exactly. And so for myself, I think until I started doing this two-way prayer, I was wasting a lot of my day wondering what that will was. And now it's like I have direct questions, I've got sort of direct responses, and I just move through it. And it makes it way freaking simpler. Like when you see people like keep it's a simple program. It certainly is if you simplify it.
Simple program for complicated people, but we
Yeah,
can't handle simple. We're like, no, no, no. It just can't be this black and white. Let me, you
but it
know,
it certainly can be. It can be. Like, and when we allow it to be, it eliminates for me a lot of the squirreliness in my brain. Like take the question mark out of the question, and actually look for the answer. You know, that's something that I'm learning for myself is very alleviating of discontent or restlessness in my brain. Hmm.
well said.
Do you have another question for me? No, Shag, no. Okay, you want to do some lightning round?
Do it.
Okay, I'm going to pull up the timer. I'm going to set the timer for 57 minutes. So this is like the reverse lightning round where it's like slow lightning and you.
I was like, whoa, this is not a lightning round.
It's slow lightning. It's called molasses. No. Okay. Mistakes that used to destroy us now become bridges to connect humility and or to connection, humility, and service. How do you share your past mistakes in a way that helps others?
I'll share my experience, right? And then my strength and hope of it. So if somebody's coming to me with a problem or, an area that they're having a lot of toughness with, and they're like, do you get this? Do you understand? I'll just quickly share somewhat of my experience and how I navigated that for a healthy outcome. So yeah, I totally believe that, like, things that I've gone through in my life are going to be tools to help another woman or help another friend in recovery and even in, real life too.
I love that. Okay, mistakes that used to destroy us now become bridges to connection, humility, and service. How do I share my past mistakes in a way that helps others? Well, I really, as I said even earlier on this podcast, like when I have these little epiphanies or self discoveries or whatever, I like finding golden treasures in my mind, I like to share them. And, I like to share them because they're often won through perseverance and work and struggle. And I just don't think it's been proven to me enough in life that we don't have to endure every struggle that all knowledge is based on. Like we can actually learn from the benefit of other people struggling. And so, I share it with my sponsees, I share it with my friends, I share it at a meeting, and quite often I share it with family members, like and friends, and not shove it down their throat, but actually just share it and say, look, this is pretty amazing for me. I'm experiencing more joy and peace because of this, and leave it there. Okay, now course correction is not about being wrong, it's about being real. What helps you know when it's time to pause and shift direction, Shannon B?
When I feel that friction really badly, when I start to feel the struggle, I'm like, oof, I'm going to keep coming at this in a way that's going to make this worse, not better. Right. So when I'm like, ew, I don't really know what to do here, or this feels overwhelming, I'm going to pray and ask God for help. And I'm going to walk away. Like, I don't need to react. Tough one sometimes. But I read something or come into a situation and my immediate reaction is to fire back. I got to take that step back and go, okay, I'm going to walk away from this. I'm going to do some praying on this. Then I'm going to come back to it. Or do I need to journal fast and get my feelings out so that I don't use those to weaponize things against another person? I'm going to do that.
I love that. Okie dokie, course correction is not about being wrong, it's about being real. What helps me know when it's time to pause and shift direction? Ooh-wee. First thing I would say to that is when I see jerkface Milan show up in town, and I'm like, oh, the second I act or say anything that is like I would not want to be around from another person, I'm like, whoa, I've already gone too far. I'm real sensitive about like negative, cynical, overly sarcastic, mean spirited. Like I'm really sensitive to that. So when I become that, I just want to run as fast as I can out of there. And so, that makes me usually try to pull out, do my own little step 10 and come back with my amends pretty quickly. And, like it's rarely more than a half hour to an hour and a half max before that's usually happening because I just can't let that go on. I have to change direction on that.
Thank
Okay.
you for sharing that because that's something that I fall into, that quick sarcastic or,
Mm,
the way wit I think that is actually harmful.
mm.
Good to remember because tell you when I'm filled with so much love and gratitude for a person and then I think back of the way that I treated them in a moment, ooh, that doesn't feel good.
There's like a duality there, and that lack of integrity is what makes us sick. Boom. Are you ready for another one? Through steps 4 to 9, we learned how to make things right. Through steps 10 to 12, we learned how to stay right. How do you use the maintenance steps as a daily check in?
Well, 10, right? Because I'm going to want to make amends quickly. I'm going to want to take up accountability. And I don't want to make what I just made about me any more about me. Prayer and meditation keeps me connected to God, keeps me living in God's will, and being of service to others makes it less about me and more about somebody else. And that's how I need to be living. Like my life ultimately needs to be less about how something affects just me. Like it's not just about me, right? Less me, more we.
Woohoo! Love that. You just like, okay. How do I use the maintenance steps as a daily check in? Well, I would call it a momentary check-in because
Mhm.
I don't wait until the end of the day to be looking at how things are going. I almost use every time I have a loan to kind of start calibrating throughout my day. And, where I live and my job and that is that quite often I have like, half hour to an hour travel time frequently at different points in the day. And I use that. I use that. So, I'm step 10ing. I'm making amends fairly rapidly. And I'm starting my day with step 11, but I'm also using prayer in throughout the day at different points, and then my service just comes up at all different times. I have scheduled times for service, but you never know when you're meeting that person who's still suffering, and then it's like taking that time to talk to them and check in with them and make them feel important, and that's it. Boom. Okay. Do you have time for a couple more?
I do.
Okay. Sometimes our higher power teaches us through disruption, not ease. Can you recall a time when a mistake directed you towards something better?
Hmm. When, I stop in a situation and I actually hear what the other person's saying and how I made them feel, or I take, my own personal victim mentality out of it, right? And I think I hear what someone's saying. Like, I'm not listening so that I can get my point in. I'm listening so that I can learn. And that's beautiful, right? And I'm going to keep making mistakes. But if I don't realize the lesson in them, I'm going to keep making that same mistake over and over again until that lesson is revealed. If I want to know my authentic self, it's not just the good. And it's not just by my own personal self assessment. It's about how others view me and that I love and care. They're like, hey, when you do this, it makes me feel this way. That's a way to grow. Doesn't mean that I have to fully commit to everything they're saying, right? Because people say things out of anger and stuff. But when something's coming up again, and I'm like, oh, I could see how that would make you feel that way. That's a great opportunity to grow.
I love that. Okay, sometimes our higher power teaches us through disruption, not ease. Can I recall a time when a mistake directed me towards something better? And I'm going to say my addiction as a whole. Like, I would have been, I would have lived a life that was probably nicer to my brain and my body without my addiction. But to not have had these tools that the program has offered for me to learn more about myself and life and how my actions affect other people, like before my addiction kicked in, I still had a lot of problems with the world. I look back now and through my step work, I'm like, man, I had a lot of my damaging beliefs and opinions and reactions to the world at my inception. That's what I was running from, you know? And having this program to change and to evolve with, and having like a map essentially is, this program's like a map, but it leads everybody to a different place. And for me, it's leading me to freedom, and I feel it, and I know it. You liked that answer. I can tell by your smile. When we accept what we're when we accept that we're always learning, mistakes become teachers, not threats. What new area of your life is recovery teaching you to approach with humility?
In my career and my finances have been a big one, right? As I've talked before, and you and I have this in common of, getting so caught up and chasing money and defining ourselves by like success career wise. That's not what makes me a successful person in life today. It's living in solutions, being in recovery, being a good person, right? So being humbled and leveled in those areas has helped me grow so much and get to know who I am at my core, not the mask I'm putting onto the world. So I'm so grateful for that. Because it was never enough, right? Today, sometimes I can get pulled into that, but I can very quickly realign and look at what I have versus what I don't have. And just have such tremendous gratitude for that. Without my recovery, I have nothing. Nothing
Woo!
substantial, at least.
I
Not
love that.
not in real substance.
When we accept that we're always learning, mistakes become our teachers, not threats. What new area of my life is recovery teaching me to approach with humility? Well, I mean, I could think of one area that was non existent was prayer. Like, I mean, and I can't see actually praying with no humility being effective at all. Like, hey man, do what I want, God, because I think the universe is all about me. No, that's not how it is. And it's really teaching me about humility inside the actions and my effects in the world, like, and the part that I am playing in my defects and shortcomings, like how I'm perpetuating these things to occur, by my reactions and actions with other people. And like very small things, like in my answers, very small things that can lead to significant outcome changes, you know, like seeking to understand and not be understood right there. Like that sounds like, oh yeah, I'm going to just understand them a little more. Yeah, right. Like actually try to see where others are coming from so that you have more instant compassion for all of their actions. That's a massive change in life. And it's part of my journey right now, for sure. Well, Shannon, I love our Saturday mornings together. I'm
Me too.
super grateful we got here today. And do you want to say anything before we shut this one down?
Sure. Thank you for everything you shared. I always, like I said, every week, like just always learn so much, and you reveal through your humility and honesty things that I am still learning and working through, right? And it's like, oh, yeah, hit the nail on the head on that one. Probably gotta surrender a bit more in that area, or that's the eye opener I needed, right? Like I am seeking to forever learn and grow. I'm not looking to graduate.
Hmm.
And that's what makes life exciting. It makes it fulfilling, and it keeps us engaged. And it's not like I'm saying, hey, I want to make a whole bunch of mistakes so that I can learn a bunch of lessons, but it's reality. We're going to.
Yeah.
And it's like rewiring a brain that's been set on one mode for such a long time. So
Yes.
when I see that I'm showing up in situations far more calmer or less affected, or, I get that feedback from people in my life, it's like, huh, right? And I can also see where my ego starts to take over. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's real cool. And I love these. And it's never too late to correct something. And we
Mm.
don't have to like, oh, well, today's a write-off, right? Like I used to. It's like, okay, bit of a wild card start here. Let's turn things around. You don't have to sit in that stuff anymore. And that's so great.
I love that. And what I'd like to say for anybody new or starting out there is that we don't have to condemn ourselves to being these terrible people or because we've done terrible things. Like every moment is the opportunity to change direction. And one of the beautiful things about these programs is that they give you the tools to start facilitating those changes in your life. Sometimes slowly, sometimes quickly, but they will help you if you work. So tune in next episode for more recovery fun. Bye bye, everybody. Love you so much. Please help us help others. If you like what you've seen here today, please subscribe and share this podcast and help us get to 100 followers. We're looking for interaction with our audience. So please email recoveryfreedomrising@gmail.com or contact Milan South Okanagan Starcic on Facebook with questions, topic suggestions, or just comments. We'd love to hear from you.